price of cognitive dissonance and delusion.
Yo, and welcome back to the price of delusion and cognitive dissonance because of the propaganda that we all fell for. Now, as I always say, history is nothing but his story, and if you just take the time to look just beneath the surface, the actual truth and the facts are all there. So today we're going to go straight to the horse's mouth, like I did yesterday or the day before when I showed you the truth about the Southern Poverty Law Center and their connections to the NAACP and the Civil Rights Movement, while the whole time they were directly paying the opposition. So let's see where all of your Democratic heroes of today come from, because they love to tell you that the party switched. Me personally, I think that's all a bunch of malarkey. I personally think they just changed the narrative and the delivery, but the party has always been the same and their purpose has always been the same. The only difference is that they went from whips, chains, and ropes to getting you to comply with your own demise. So let's get down to business.
I know I should answer the question that is on very many of your minds, and that is, how did a nice Republican girl from Park Ridge go wrong? I mean, this is one of the great unanswered questions that we have to address. And I have to tell you, it started right here. And the reason it did is because in 1964, during the presidential election of
1964. What exactly was happening in 1964? I bet that was right around the same time that we were fighting for things like immigration and birthright citizenship, or the 14th Amendment, not just being applied to the descendants of chattel slavery as it was meant to be, but to be applied to all and anyone who entered these shores legally or illegally, which is now how it's being interpreted by this woman here in her party. But let's continue down the lane of cognitive dissonance and delusion.
That year, I had the absolutely best teachers for what we used to then call, I think, civics and democracy or government and democracy. Each was a semester course. And they decided they were going to have a mock election. And that we were really going to go all out. We were going to have debates. We were going to have the whole panoply of activities around a mock election. At that time, as Ken Reese has told every reporter in America who has called to ask him, and I understand he runs a one-man information bureau about me, I was a Goldwater girl, a Goldwater girl, a Goldwater girl. I mean, really, we used to wear little banners which said Goldwater girl. So my social studies teachers struck upon this great idea, since I was vocally a Republican and for Senator Goldwater, and a Republican and for Senator Goldwater, and a Republican and for Senator Goldwater, and one of my very best friends, a woman named Ellen Press, was one of the few Democrats in the whole school.
Now, I want to stop here for one moment. If you know anything about the destiny swap and what that entails and what it means, then if you know, you know. But just remember, in her own released emails, when she said she was making sacrifices of chickens to Molech in the backyard. Yeah, and here comes the destiny swap. Now remember, her own words. She was a Goldwater girl, Barry Goldwater. If you know, again, you know. But back to the cognitive dissonance and delusion.
Vocally for Lyndon Johnson, our social studies teacher said, well, we're going to have a debate, but here's what we're going to do. Hillary, you're going to be Lyndon Johnson. Ellen, you're going to be Barry Goldwater. So after leaving Maine South, I went to Wellesley, still a Republican, but a different kind of attitude and a different sort of inquiry about what it was I believed. And then gradually over time in college and law school, I evolved my own political beliefs, which frankly are in some ways neither easily defined. They're not dogmatically Republican, dogmatically Democrat, easily defined as liberal or conservative.
As also noted, Robert C. Byrd was a parliamentary library, a keeper of the institution of the Senate.
What that means is she has no allegiance. There are no actual political ties to anything except for the agenda that she's paid to push. Where to APAC.
And he was the institution itself. But to me, and many people here today, like guys I see, Bill Bradley and Jim Sasser, who've long left the Senate for greener pastures, and I hope better remuneration. We used to kid about that too, but for a lot of us, he was a friend, and he was a mentor, and he was a guide. A lot of us, he was a friend, and he was a mentor, and he was a guide. A lot of us, he was a friend, and he was a mentor, and he was a guide.
Lost a true American original, my friend and mentor Robert C. Byrd. Lost a true American original, my friend and mentor Robert C. Byrd. Lost a true American original, my friend and mentor Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd was a man of surpassing eloquence and nobility.
Can't run on for a long time. Run on for a long time.
Eloquence and nobility. The world is a psyop, ladies and gentlemen.
Robert C. Byrd elevated the Senate. Every time I sat with a leader, I never called Senator Byrd Senator. I always called him leader. So boss, for a lot of us, he was a friend, and he was a mentor, and he was a guide. So I made a promise that no matter where I was, if he called me and said he needed my vote, I'd drop whatever I was doing and I'd come. And I kept the commitment. The only one, I might add. That got me back in his good graces again.
His own words, the only commitment he ever kept was when the boss, the leader, the Klansman, Senator Robert Byrd called him. And he was right there to get back in his good graces with all that eloquent nobility. Again, the party switched. Yeah.
May the chair respectfully suggest to the delegates that we get this platform taken care of tonight, and then we can start hollering for whoever we want. And warning of the extremist threat, its danger to the party.
Extremist.
I have not. You haven't kept this audience dismissed, so it's your job. Now look, the governor hasn't had a chance to talk. He's been up here 10 minutes and he hasn't had a chance to talk but about 4 minutes. Some of you don't like to hear it, ladies and gentlemen, but it's the truth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
But it appeared to us that at least half and probably more of the New York delegation walked out of the hall at Senator Goldwater's last word. understanding he is not joining in the applause in the demonstration now going on the floor for Senator Goldwater.
Senator Goldwater, we have another question here from some of our listeners. You voted against the Civil Rights Act in 1964. Would you do so today? And what is your position now on the proposed Voting Rights Act?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, if the same two items remain in the bill that caused me to think it unconstitutional at that time remained in any bill today, I would have to vote against it. This isn't something, by the way, that you make a determination on from the standpoint of politics. I have no question that had I voted for that bill, I might have softened some of the Negro opposition to my candidacy, but I'm not foolish enough to think that I would have won over the NAACP. I have to live with myself, and I took an oath to defend and uphold the Constitution. And this was the only civil rights bill in 12 years that I couldn't vote for. But it did contain two items that I thought were unconstitutional. One, the court has now said is constitutional, so I have to abide by the court.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Part we're not keeping count of cognitive dissonance and delusion and the propaganda that we have all fallen for. Well, I don't know how many times I can say it or how many ways I can say it, but we're all being played, we're all being used. They are playing us against ourselves and using us to support, endorse, and keep alive or be complicit in capitulating the institutions and the legislation that actually oppress us. And we do it happily and with a smile. Think not? Ask the NAACP and the Southern Poverty Law Center. But I'll leave you with that, and with that you will do what you will, but just remember that Hillary killed Count Clinton, and Papa Sleepy Joe, the human autopin, the president who was the boss of the former border czar, Kamala, who invited 20 million of her kids over here that they continue to tell you to fight for and dry ice. When you all will figure out that there's a psyop going on, I don't know. But until you do, I will continue to do what I do, because realize, and transparency forces accountability. Y'all keep your eyes to the stars and that head on a swivel, because we are in the diabolical den of demons, aka the Viper's Pit. Y'all stay dangerous out there, because they're playing